This is the EWN Podcast Network.
Welcome to Late Boomers, our podcast guide to creating your third act with style, power, and impact. Hi, I'm Kathy Worthington.
And I'm Mary Elkins. Join us as we bring you conversations with successful entrepreneurs, entertainers, and people with vision who are making a difference in the world.
Everyone has a story, and we'll take you along for the ride on each interview, recounting the journey our guests have taken to get where they are, inspiring you to create your own path to success. Let's get started. Hello, I'm Kathy Worthington. Welcome to Late Boomers. Today our guest is Kim Rahir, a health coach for women who emphasizes rebuilding and reactivating muscle. Last year she became European champion in masters weightlifting in her age and weight category.
And I'm Mary Elkins. Kim has an amazing story of how she came to this career, and you'll want to hear all about her story. I promise you it is quite unusual and sure to inspire you. Welcome, Kim.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to get to talk to you too.
We're excited to hear from you too. So please tell us about the path that led to where you find yourself today. We want to hear how you went from a wheelchair to becoming European Masters weightlifting champion.
Yeah, well, it's a long story. It's a bit of a saga. I used to be a journalist. My husband too. We moved every 4 years from country to country. Had 3 kids in the process. Dragged them from country to country too. They're like citizens of the world, and we was sort of enjoying life when we got to Berlin in the 2000s. Who had been working as a freelancer most of those years, had a full-time job again and 3 kids. And I thought, yeah, I had made it. I was raised, Germany was, I don't know about today because I haven't lived there for in a long time. But when I was raised, it was like socially still very, very conservative. And I was raised to believe that you could either be a mom and have a family, or you could either have a career, but both, no way. And I had always wanted to prove that this was not true and that you could have it all. And there I was in Berlin having it all. And then from one day to the next, it was all taken away from me because I fell ill. I picked up my kids from school and realized while I was driving home that I was seeing double, which is mighty scary.
Yeah.
Can't sort of ignore your way out of that one. When you have a little bit of a niggle in your right knee, you can say, oh, it's going to go away. But you're seeing double, something's wrong in the brain. And went to hospital, spent 6 weeks there. After 3 weeks, I was completely paralyzed from the hip downward. They knew it was something autoimmune, but they couldn't put their finger on it because my symptoms were all over the place. So normally you have either the eyes going crazy or you have the paralysis. But not both. And, they have like their definition boxes and they need that for diagnostics. So I was spending weeks in the hospital not knowing what was really going on, not knowing if I would be able to walk again. And they tried all sorts of stuff that they injected me with. And then one of those things must have worked because I started getting better. And I decided after a few months that this was an autoimmune syndrome, a one-off that comes and goes. And after a year of treatment, I was given a clean bill of health and I was told I could live my life. And I was so happy. This had already changed my perspective. And we can talk about that, a lot. When you're out of the equation from one day to the next, you learn so much. I mean, it's painful. It was very scary, but I learned a lot. And then when I was told that I was fine, I was so grateful. I said, this is a second shot at life. And then another year went by and then I felt my left hand gone numb. I knew this wasn't good. More tests. And they said, oh, this time it's different. This time it's actually an autoimmune attack on the white matter in your nerves. And if it happens again, it's MS. And I spent a year hoping that it wouldn't happen again. And then it did happen again.
Oh,
It was much milder. I only noticed it because I was doing a weird yoga pose on the bedroom floor. There was a
Oh,
tingling in my spine,
you were still in a
but it was a
wheelchair?
no.
no, no. I had learned to walk again. My life had become totally normal again. No, I was actually doing a plow pose, where you do this, you and I felt this tingling in my spine, and I knew this wasn't good. It was the second relapse, so I was officially declared an MS patient, and the doctor told me that I need lifelong treatment. And I fought with him
Mm,
for 45 minutes. It was interesting because he was not used to it. He was sort of just writing the prescription for this stuff that I was going to inject myself with 3 times a week, while I was said, hang on, can we talk about this? Lifelong treatment? Are you serious? Telling him
Yeah.
that the second relapse was so much milder. Maybe I was getting better. Yeah. I know now that, especially after the hospital experience where I was paralyzed and couldn't move, I didn't want to give my power away again. I didn't want to be dependent on some kind of medication for the rest of my life, injecting
Yeah.
yourself 3 times a week.
Yeah. I
mhm.
wanted to ask you what was going through your mind when you were diagnosed with this.
Uh, I thought it was first of all, I thought it was a really low blow. It's like, yeah, this one off, this one where I was better afterwards, and they said I was going to be healthy and fine. It was just too good to be true. And now, it's come back with a vengeance. It's also what I like to just, the word I like to use to describe what I felt was like actually darkness. It feels dark.
Mhm.
Your
Yeah.
thoughts of the future, they they are in, everything's in the dark because you don't know what's going to happen to you. You have no idea. You could become paralyzed. You could even become blind. And MS has so many different forms and shapes. You just don't know. And that uncertainty is very scary. My kids, when I was diagnosed, they were like 15, 13, and 11. And
Mhm.
I wanted to be there for them, and I didn't want them to see me in hospital beds all the time. And it was very, very dark and scary.
So
I
that
think
was kind of
that's
what your
that's
mental state was. So how did you take care of your mental health with that kind of diagnosis?
I I discovered mindfulness and meditation. I realized that looking ahead, looking at the future, looking at the big picture was super scary.
Mhm.
Because of the uncertainty. Now, when you think about it, it's actually the same for anybody. Nobody of us knows what's
Yeah.
going to be
Right.
tomorrow.
That's true.
But then when you have this diagnosis, like you're really forced to realize that all you have is today. All you have is right now.
Mhm.
And I started a mindfulness practice. I meditated, and also because I wanted to spend time with my kids, I really focused on being there for them every day, and always focused on what I could do in the moment. What can
Mhm.
I do now? And it's something that I tell women 20,000 times a day now. Don't think, oh my God, I should have, or don't say, oh, how am I going to? Ask yourself, what now? What
Mm.
can I do now? That's the only thing that you can do. And it's the one thing that will actually help you move forward and make the most of the time you have.
How did that mindset change you?
Well, totally. I already, the first experience in the hospital had made me uh, much more grateful for anything that I had. I remember one time while I was still using a wheelchair, I was sitting at home and saw people walking outside in the street, and they were looking so grumpy. And I thought, how on earth can you be so grumpy when you can walk? You don't even know how lucky you are. And I had taken that with me. I had really kept the gratitude. And I think I became a much cooler mom because, I could not be bothered with all the stuff that I used to get worked up about. And I know that so many mothers think that, the world will come to an end if they're not there the next day, or if their kid has a bad grade in a math test. So I became much cooler. I think it was became more fun to be around for my kids.
That's good.
And yeah,
Nice
and I
side
appreciate
effect.
every day much more.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you haven't talked at all about weightlifting and muscle. And
Yeah.
we would love to know how building muscle is crucial for women's health in midlife and really all the time.
Yes. How long have we got?
Yeah.
Because
Long as you want.
I'm so passionate.
Tell
I'm
us
so passionate about
tell us
this.
everything.
So when I got my diagnosis, my left hand is numb to this day, by the way. So there's like a bit of nerve damage in my spine, but otherwise I could still walk, something that I really cherished after having been paralyzed before. And I asked my doctor if I could exercise, and he was very non-committal, saying, "Yeah, be careful," stuff like this. So he didn't want anything to do with this. But a nurse told me that exercise is great for MS. It makes you fatigue resistant, and go ahead. And I had this urge, and I think it links back again to the traumatizing hospital experience. I wanted to become physically strong. I wanted to go to the gym. I had been going to the gym before, but like so many women trying to create a certain body shape and sort of staying fit and just, doing the gym because you have to. And this time I just wanted to go to the gym and I wanted to become insanely strong. That was my desire. Armed myself with a great book, looked out for form, like tried to lift like very, very, with clean, super perfect form, and started lifting heavy. It was one of the first books actually that said women should lift heavy too. It was called Lift Like a Man, Look Like a Goddess, the book.
I love that.
It's so
Oh my
crazy.
gosh, can you imagine publishing with a title like that right now? But I bet.
Oh, yeah.
They say, it was the end of the 90s, and I think they're a bit embarrassed. Oh my God, we would never use that title again.
No,
At the
lift like a
time, I liked
man,
it.
look like a goddess. Oh
Isn't
dear.
that crazy?
Yeah.
But it's a fantastic book.
Uh-huh.
And I started lifting heavy, and you get better and stronger so quickly when you really lift. And it doesn't mean that you have to start with lots of kilos, but if that's your intention and you challenge your body, you don't dabble with pink dumbbells, but you do the big lifts. It has an effect on your mental health, and I think that's also one of the reasons for my evolution. So I got better and better. I got stronger and stronger. I had been told in hospital that certain reflexes that had disappeared from my nerves, that they would never come back, they all came back. My neurological checkups turned into 2-minute appointments where they said, "Oh, okay, I see you, fine, you can go," because I was just so fit and strong and mobile, and everything was just fine. And we moved to Spain, found myself another neurologist. And after 3 years of injecting myself, we were going on a camping trip. And I asked him, "Can I stop the treatment for 2 weeks? Because I don't want to go with the whole apparatus and, injecting yourself when you're camping. It's somehow, and then take it on a plane because we're going to Canada." And he said, "You know what? Why don't you just stop? If you want to stop, I'm going to support you. If you don't want to stop, I'm going to support you too."
Wow.
And I said, "Hell yes, I want to stop." Injecting yourself 3 times a week, you know what happens to your skin at the injection sites? It's absolutely horrible. And I had side effects, like it's called like pseudo flu or something. You feel like you're getting the flu on the days you inject yourself. So I was more than ready to stop. And it was quite unconventional, because usually when you start on interferon beta, you never stop. They're just too scared for you to have a relapse and suffer damage. This guy, he was very up to date, went to all kinds of conventions in the US, and he read a lot, and he said, "We're not even that sure now that this medication is effective. So if you're going to need something again, it's not going to be this one." Which encouraged me a lot,
Yeah, but
because
that's kind of
if
scary.
you're not even sure.
That's scary because you've been injecting it 3 times a week for a couple of years, right? At that point.
Yes,
It's kind of scary to have him say,
I
"Oh, we
know.
wouldn't even give you that now." It's like,
Yeah, I found it encouraging. You know why? Because I was doing so well, and
mhm,
until the moment you stop, you don't really know, are you doing well because you're better, or is it maybe really the medication that keeps you well?
Hmm.
And when he said that they had doubts about the medication, I had more occasion to believe that it was actually me getting better. It was not the medication that got me better.
Hmm.
And at
mhm,
that point, I also thought that I might be onto something. And I had been sort of a little bit tired of journalism for a while, and I decided I was going to share this message with as many women as I could.
mhm.
Took all the certifications and the stuff that you need to coach properly, and I've never looked back. And in the meantime, that was 2017. Now we have so much research
Mhm.
that actually shows how you can change your health, your life, how you can change so much, influence so much just by building muscle and becoming physically strong.
Wow.
It's like a one-stop shop in my opinion. And the only problem that we have to overcome is the narrative, and that women don't relate that much to physical strength because we're
Mhm.
not raised
Yeah,
with that as an ideal.
right. It's tough. We, Mary and I, have interviewed a couple people on the subject, and we always want to do it, and then we something blocks me. I don't have to speak for Mary, but something blocks me from actually doing it. And I have a daughter that's telling me all the time, "You need to build muscle. You need to lift weights." Uh, what other aspects of health does building muscle improve beyond just physical strength?
Oh, it's everything. The big one, very big one, is metabolic health.
Hmm.
Ah,
It's something that we didn't know some time ago. But with diabetes on the rise and blood sugar management becoming a problem for so many people, the more muscle you carry, the easier your body will deal with sugar, because
Hmm.
sugar gets stored in the muscles, gets stored in the liver first. And then the more muscle you carry, the more sugar you can stock, because it's going to be directed there as energy reserve in
mm,
case you have to do something. It's
Huh.
it's really the size of your muscle is like the size of your sugar warehouse in your body. It's amazing. So if you have like diabetes 2 or insulin resistance or something like this, building muscle is like your way to go. It's so simple, and it's really very effective. It's also very, very important for cardiovascular health. Um, there's one
oh,
thing that happens, because if you have strong muscles, the contractions help the circulation, for example. And there's more things like certain proteins being released or produced that help with cardiovascular health. It's really that too. And then the big one, the one that I love the most, because I'm experiencing it every single day, is your mental health. And we have research on that too. Every symptom of mental health, depression, low self esteem, all these things, they get better when people train for
Hmm.
strength. They
mm,
improve.
Hmm.
There's one thing that I still worry about, or that I think a lot about, because we have to find a way to make this accessible. When people are like really low or depressed, they would benefit tremendously from training. But you can't, someone who's low and depressed, you cannot go there and say, oh, all you have to do is lift, because that's the last thing that they want to do. They have so huge obstacles,
yeah,
to
they
get
just want to sit
moving.
on the
It's the
couch. They want to
yes.
sit on a
And
couch.
and then and if you say, oh, all you need to do is exercise, like, it's easy, then you make them probably feel guilty and worse. So
Yeah.
this is why I really say we need to start as small as possible. And maybe that's for you too, Kathy, because
Hmm. I was
when
going
you
to ask you,
make this big
how long do you
yeah.
tell people to start? Like, how many minutes of actual weight work do you advise people when they're just starting and haven't done it?
My clients, they start with 15 minutes a day.
Oh, is
15
that
minutes,
all?
and
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the effects are tremendous, and they don't have to go anywhere. They can do 15 minutes first thing in the morning in their pajamas. And I think this is really super important, because when we say it's January 1st, right? You say, okay, my big New Year's decision, I'm going to the gym 3 times a week. And you think you have made this one decision to change your life. What you've actually done is you have sort of condemned yourself to making 25 decisions every time you want to implement that. You have to pack your bag. You have to pick a gym. You have to get into your car. You have to drive through traffic. You have to find parking space. You have to walk in there. You have to go to the locker room. Then you have to
Right.
walk onto the gym floor, which is already like super scary for so many women.
Yeah.
This is too many decisions, and this will build resistance, and it's external resistance, like traffic and time, and internal resistance too, because it feels like just too much to fit into your day. Whereas when you can do 15 minutes in the morning in your pajamas, there's only one decision, just one, go and do it.
What's the best way to start strength training in midlife, or even when you're older, beyond midlife?
I think the most important part is that you need to start where you are at. So it's not the same for everybody. You need a very thorough assessment of your strength and your mobility, so you know how to challenge yourself. It must be challenging, but it cannot be overwhelming, and it cannot be, you cannot risk to get injured, because when you get injured, it takes much longer to get better when you're older.
That's what
and
worries
then,
me, because
yes.
I'm always worried, am I lifting too much? Am I going to tear a muscle? How can you gauge that? Do you need to work with a trainer?
I think you need a trainer, some kind of expert, at least to assess you at the beginning, just to make sure where you are at. What also happens, and we underestimate this, when we don't do certain movements for a very long time, and the lifting movements that we want to do are everyday movements, like very human movements, like pushing and pulling and carrying and things like that. And when you haven't done that in your everyday life, because everything is done for us these days, the connection between your brain and your muscles actually sort of goes offline. The brain is ruthless. It's all for the brain. Everything is a matter of allocation of resources. So if you don't contract your butt muscles for 10, 20 years, that connection goes offline, and you will not be able to contract them, actually. We call this gluteal amnesia. Your brain is sort of
Wow.
forgotten about this. You
Your
have
brain
to
forgot about your
awaken
butt.
this.
Oh my gosh.
I do it
Oh my
every day.
gosh.
This is
Doing it right now.
I know.
Whoa.
I mean, isn't that
But
crazy?
the brain can forget about anything, right? Which is what the muscle activation technique trainers tell you to
Yes,
reactivate.
absolutely. And I think and that's also where the danger of getting injured comes from, because you have a visual impression of the movement and you want to mimic it, but you do not have the actual connection, from the central nervous system to the muscle fiber that allows you to execute that movement. So you're going to do something that looks like this, because we're so good at mimicking. That's what our brain does. It mirrors what we see, but it's not the execution is going to be faulty, and that's how you get injured. You want to try and do this thing, and then you do something that's totally different, or you don't have the strength and the mobility. The best example, for example, is back pain, lower back pain. Most of the time does not originate in the lower back. It's because our upper back is so stiff. So the mobility that's supposed to be up here when we do certain movements has to be compensated by the lower back, because we're too stiff here, and it has to move much more than is comfortable. So all these things have to be taken into account, and then you can build a program. And if you haven't done anything for a very long time, you want to start with body weight exercises. Like you can do wall push-ups, plank progressions. You need everything to be scaled to your level of skill and strength and experience, and then you take it from there.
How did you start? How much weight did you start with, or did you start with wall push-ups?
I didn't. For push-ups, I didn't start with full push-ups. I had them like sort of halfway. You want to start like this, and then you take them down. I started somewhere here. I started with deadlifts and squats, and I started with something like maybe 20, 30, 40 kilos. I don't know what
Ooh.
that is in pounds now,
That's a lot.
but
That's like, what, 50 pounds, 60 pounds, 70?
yeah, 40 kilos would be like 88 pounds, I think. But
Yeah.
that's something in a deadlift you could probably do. Just imagine you carrying a toddler or a grandchild. They're
You hope
pretty
they're
heavy
not
too.
88 pounds.
Yeah.
Well, children are getting bigger too.
Well, they get bigger
True,
every
that's
day.
true.
They get bigger every day. But describe what a deadlift is for people that don't lift
Yes,
weights.
yes. So you have a barbell with two plates on the side, and the plates on the side are mostly there to have the barbell at a certain height from the floor. Because if it's flat on the floor, it's even more difficult to pick it up in terms of mobility and flexibility. And then you position yourself, and you want to lift that bar from the lower position up to your hips. So you're just lifting it up until it's at the height of your hips. And you want to lift it with a very, very straight back. You hardly move the back. You immobilize the back, and you lift it with your legs and with your butt.
Mm-hmm. Really
They
tough.
say the name comes from lifting dead soldiers off battlefields, because you had to pick them up from the floor.
Oh, that's why they called it deadlift. Ooh.
Mm.
That's a vision.
How much weight did you start with when you started lifting?
I think that would have been about, for deadlifts, maybe 40 kilos, because that's the one where you can lift the most. And then for squats, I would have started with the bar, which in a normal gym is 20 kilos. And what I'm doing now, which is Olympic weightlifting, the bar for girls is only 15 kilos. So 20 kilos, that means that's like a 45-pound bar. And the bar for girls will probably be 35 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. Well, how much weight can you lift?
You mean like right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would have to calculate my back squat, because that you want to hear that in pounds, and I'm going to do that in a second. My back squat is about 170 pounds, that you put on your shoulders and you go down and back up.
Oof.
But what I mostly do now is Olympic weightlifting, and that's something different. That is just two movements. One is the snatch and one is the clean and jerk. And I don't know if you remember this, maybe from Olympic Games or watching it sometimes on TV. I watched that with my dad when I was a kid. It's like, you see like overweight, hairy men in weird leotards lifting these things overhead.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had a PT. I was working with a personal trainer, and he asked me, would you like to try this? And I said, okay, let's try it. Totally sucked at it, because it's very technical. It's not only physical, it's also physics. You have to outsmart gravity. But I was hooked because it's explosive, so you can never be sure that you're doing the exact same movement, and you have to work on sort of getting into the groove, doing it over and over again. So, every lift looks as much as possible like the one before. And I loved it so much that I signed up for a pure weightlifting gym where they only do that. And after 2 weeks, they said, hey, Kim, nice that you're training with us. Do you want to compete? And I was 55 at the time, and I said, compete. Do you know how old I am? Today, I would never ask that again. Never. And they said, we don't care. We have other women your age, and they're competing. Of course, everybody here competes. And said, oh, okay. Okay, why not? Okay, yeah, let's do this. And I'm pretty sure in my 30s, I would not have said yes. I would have thought, oh, this is another thing, another obligation, another stress factor, whatever. And I would have thought that it would be like sort of cumbersome or too much. And, when you reach 50, you become a bit of an anarchist and you can do a little bit more of what you fancy.
So it's never too late. It's never too late for anyone
Absolutely
to
not.
start lifting and to get
Absolutely
strong.
not.
But
Yes. And you don't have,
as a coach,
you don't have to lift up.
as a coach, how do you tell people that it's not too late? What are you saying to them? How do you make people understand that they could start, like even older women?
Yes, I just give them stuff that they can do, and I think this is really the crucial part. There are fantastic workouts on YouTube. They're great full programs that you can download. They're not for midlife women. That's the problem. When you find the thing that's right for you, and if it's sometimes there's like really stories that make me want to cry. I had a client who used a stick to get out of bed in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's horse riding and walking 10K steps a day and stuff. And what do we start with? We just, I put her on the floor and had her start moving her limbs just a little bit in ways that would activate those muscles, that would awaken that memory between the brain and the muscles. You have to be patient, but you can do it. So, and this is the same thing that I always say about motivation. Motivation is totally overrated, and you cannot sit on your butt, a famous one that your brain has forgotten about, and and wait for motivation to come over you like the Holy Spirit. Action creates motivation.
I love
so
that.
I give them an action that they can do and where they are at with the strength and the mobility that they have, no matter how little. And we start from there, and it snowballs, because you start moving a little bit, you feel better. So you start more, then you feel so much better that you want to do more. And that's how this works.
Well, when the gym,
that's how it's going to work for you,
when
Kathy.
the people, good, from your mouth to God's ears. Thank you. But when you went from the gym then to start competing, and they talked you into it, and you took that leap of faith, tell us about your experiences then competing in the weightlifting competitions. What were you, particularly, what were you eating, and how were you training for them?
Yeah.
Eating is very simple. You want to eat a lot of protein, a lot of vegetables, and depending on how active you are, you will dose your carbohydrates. There's nothing wrong with carbs if you are physically active. So I eat a lot of protein, as much vegetable as I can, and then on training days, which is most days, I'll have some wholemeal bread and stuff like this to go with that. That's all. It's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
So I do not eat or create gourmet meals. It's all very, very sort of simple and plain. Doesn't mean that it's not tasty. But that my intention for the eating is to fuel my workouts.
No sweets.
I do eat sweets, but it could be like a protein bar, for example, or some dark chocolate. Sometimes maybe when I say cookie, you will think of these huge things that you have, right? And I would say I'll use the British word biscuit, so I sometimes could have like a biscuit or something. But it's not important. It's not something that I crave. Let me put it like this. And when I want something sweet, I can have something, and I don't worry about it. Now, my very first competition, it was so exciting. You get 3 attempts for each lift. So in total, you get 6 attempts, 3 for the snatch and 3 for the clean and jerk. The emotions that were running through me were so strong that I thought I had to cry. I told my coach, I want to cry. I want to cry. It was no sadness or anything. It was just so powerful emotions that I didn't know, where to leave it. And he said, don't cry now. You can cry later, because, when you cry, you sort of, you relax yourself a little bit, and you need a certain tonicity in your body when you go lift. And then it's scary, because they call your name, you have 1 minute. You go out there, the lights are on you, and you have that 1 minute to make the lift. You cannot go and say, oh, yesterday I lifted this, or, oh, if I train a bit more, I could lift this, or,
Yeah.
on a good day, I can lift this. No, it's no. You have 60 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, sometimes you have a bad day and you don't make the lift. So you learn so much. You learn to focus on the moment, to, really don't look who's watching or whatever. You focus on the moment. And then when you fail, you get 2 more attempts, and then you have to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be in the present moment. You cannot think about, oh, what went wrong with this one? And, oh, why did this happen?
Mm-hmm.
Forget it.
Such a
You
life
have to stay
lesson.
focused. Absolutely. You learn so much, and you learn how to fail. I mean, you learn technically, of course, you learn how to fail so the bar doesn't crash on you when you don't make the lift. So you have to sort of learn how to duck and dodge. But you also learn to just accept that this didn't go well. Let's try the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you have to accept. I mean, this is the double-edged sword. You have to be visible. So you have to wear this ridiculous onesie. That's that's the rule. And
That's funny.
and you have to step out there, and all eyes are on you. But that's great too, because so many women say, "Oh, when you turn 50, you become invisible."
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I think
and
that's
when
true.
you step on a weightlifting platform, you're very visible.
Oh, I would say so.
Can you give us a couple of stories about specific client success stories? And you don't have to name them, just give us some great stories.
Well, there's this lady I just mentioned, and to this day, she sends me messages regularly, because she literally couldn't get out of bed. She was in pain. Her back was so stiff and so sore, and she started moving very gently, at first on the floor, getting up, and then the more she moved, the easier it became for her to also go walking and to do everyday chores. She had become very dependent on her husband, and she didn't like that at all. And it took her about a year and a half. She lost 10 kilos, like 25 pounds in the process. And she really went from using a stick to fulfilling her dream. Her dream that, she told me that when she started was to ride horses again.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's hard to believe in that when you see someone who's walking, with a stick. But she made it happen by just, moving gently every day and showing up every day, because that's the big one. Showing up every day is the big one.
Showing up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And there's another lady who's had also a very impressive story. She had gained something like 20 or even 25 pounds over a year with HRT that a doctor had given her. Apparently, that's what she said, without really noticing that there were some red flags and she shouldn't have been given that medication. And when we met, she was in the UK, and in her region, pharmacies had just run out of that particular HRT treatment. And she said, okay, maybe this is a sign. Maybe I should try something else. And she started working with me, and she stopped the HRT because she couldn't take it. There was none available.
Mm-hmm.
And she switched to eating lots of protein, because she was one of those ladies, and that happens a lot. They say, I eat so healthy. I really eat very healthy. But I cannot lose the weight. What's going on? And it's because we need more specificity in middle age. Just eating healthy is so vague. And many women end up eating too many calories because it's healthy and too little protein. Because
when you say
meat and dairy.
specificity, are you talking about certain kinds of protein or amount?
I'm just talking about the goal that you pursue with your eating. When you build your meal, what's your intention? Is it weight loss? Is it health? Or is it pleasure? I call this the trifecta. And you can only ever have two of the three in your intention. So if you build a meal that you want to be healthy and pleasurable, it's not going to be very helpful for weight loss because you're going to eat tons of nuts and avocados and what have you.
Yes.
It's going to be it's going to be delicious. It's going to be healthy, but it's not going to be very good for weight loss.
So tell us what the tips are for how to improve strength. What should we be eating to build our strength?
Protein.
Yeah.
Protein and vegetables.
Yeah.
Any special kind of protein? What kind of meat or
actually,
veggies?
No. The best, the bioavailability of animal proteins is the best for the body. That's what the body can absorb best. So that would be meat and chicken and fish and dairy and things like this. If you don't want to eat animal proteins, you have to be even more intentional. Eat the right combos of legumes and grains and things to get there. You can get there, but it's going to be so much harder.
Yeah.
So changing the subject a little bit, but you live in Madrid now. How did that come about? And tell us about that life experience.
Yes. So we were traveling around, we moved every 4 years. My husband had the steady job and I worked as a freelancer, and his assignments lasted for 4 years because as a journalist, you need to stay an outsider. If you stay too long in the country, you start identifying the country with the people. And if you want to report on the country, you need to sort of keep a bit of distance. So that's why people are moved every 4 years. And I remember that in 2011, we moved to Paris and we told our children that this was the last move and we're going to stay put because we wanted them to have, long-term friends. And we wanted to sort of have a steady home. And then after a year, my husband came home and he was raised traveling. His parents were diplomats. So he had been, he has it in his blood. So he came home after a year and he said, well, there's this posting in Madrid, and I think it would be really nice. And I said, yeah, but we promised the kids. And then said, okay, what we could do is you go to Madrid and we stay here, and then we meet. We sort of shuttle and meet and stuff. Yeah, okay, we can try that. It's a good idea. Madrid is a great opportunity. We told the kids there was this possibility, and Dad was going to go to Spain and we were going to stay. And the kids all said, are you out of your mind? We're all going. We all want to go. So we all moved to Madrid.
And were they all still in their teens at that point?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the youngest was 12. Yeah, they were between 12 and 16. And then when we were in Madrid after 4 years, my husband actually managed to get 2 more years. And I don't know why that happened. I think that there was a problem that they had to solve and they wanted him to stay in place so his successor wouldn't have to start from scratch, but solving the problem, something, it was just good luck for us. And then after the 6 years, he was about to retire. He had accumulated like close to a year of time off. And then he was to retire. And then there we were thinking, where do we want to go? Did we want to go to Germany? No. did we want to go to France? No. I mean, we'd lived in France. Paris is kind of our second home. But, the quality of life is just so fantastic here that we didn't hesitate long. We said, no, we're going to stay in Madrid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we did.
So he's retired now.
This is the most...
He's retired.
Yes,
yeah.
And this is the longest we've been anywhere. We're going to close 10 years this summer.
So your kids are grown.
They are. And one lives in France, one lives in the UK, and one lives next door.
Nice. So you have many places to go.
Yes, that is true.
Kim, what would you like our audience to have as a takeaway today? What's your main message?
I want everybody to really embrace the thought that it's never, never, ever too late. There was a very touching video that I saw today on social media by Shannon Doherty, who passed away.
Right.
And she had already been diagnosed, and she said, I am not done. And that's something that I want to share. You are not done. It's never too late. And focus on just one small thing that you can do now. Forget about the big picture. I know we're supposed to have big ass goals and big picture and think big. No, think small. Think, what can I do right now that will somehow make me better? And that could be go for a glass of water or take a walk around the block, whatever it is, something small that you can do now, because now is all you have, and it will make you feel better right away, and you can start something from there.
Oh,
love it.
I love that. Thank you so much, Kim. I'm inspired. I'm going to get out and start lifting weights. Our guest today on Late Boomers has been Kim Rahir, who overcame MS and being in a wheelchair to become European Masters weightlifting champion. You can reach Kim on her website, kimrahir.com, and I'll spell it KIMRAHIR.com, where you can have access to free health and strength assessment that'll help you figure out where you are right now and what your steps should be in order to improve your health, strength, and happiness. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Love this conversation.
Oh, we do too. We want to thank our listeners also for subscribing to our podcast and checking us out on YouTube, and for recommending us to your friends. We appreciate you. We'd love to have you give us a 5-star review. And we want to hear about your experiences with late boomers and what gets you inspired. We are on Instagram at I am Kathy Worthington and at I am Mary Elkins and at Late Boomers. Thank you so much for listening. And thanks again, Kim. Thank you for joining us on Late Boomers, the podcast that is your guide to creating a third act with style, power, and impact. Please visit our website and get in touch with us at lateboomers.biz. If you would like to listen to or download other episodes of Late Boomers, go to ewnpodcastnetwork.com.
This podcast is also available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and most other major podcast sites. We hope you make use of the wisdom you've gained here and that you enjoy a successful third act with your own style, power, and impact.